So many of us struggle with self-forgiveness. Do you? I know I sure did for a long time. What we have found is women especially struggle with self-forgiveness. We carry the weight of guilt, shame, and perfectionism on our shoulders. But self-forgiveness is not just an act of kindness to ourselves. It's necessary for our mental well-being. When we forgive ourselves, we open the door to healing, growth, and peace for ourselves and those around us. So listen in for some steps you can take if you are one of the people like myself was that is struggling with self-forgiveness. Hi, I'm Brenda Reese, freedom and forgiveness coach, and a person just like you that is learning to navigate life and all of its challenges. I teach a forgiveness process like no other. It's a blend of practical and spiritual forgiveness. This process guides you into knowing how unforgiveness can be keeping you stuck in your relationships, both personally and professionally, and how it prevents you from releasing resentment and finding joy. Each week, I share practical and some not so practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and other people that are on this journey just like us. This is for you if you are ready to turn your pain into peace. Welcome to the Forgive Yourself podcast. Sometimes it's easy to forget that we don't always know what self-forgiveness even means. Now, it's not just saying, okay, that's something I need to be better about, or then we move through the motions, right? Self-forgiveness means acknowledging our mistakes, taking responsibility, and most importantly, letting go of self-punishment. Ooh, that's a biggie. Forgiving yourself isn't the same as excusing bad behavior or poor choices. It's about understanding that you're human and that making mistakes is part of this human experience. If you let them, mistakes can become beautiful learning opportunities. Now, unfortunately, self-forgiveness can often feel challenging, especially when guilt, shame, or perfectionism gets in the way. Anybody got that? I'm raising my hand. Guilt keeps us stuck in the past, while shame tells us that we are somehow flawed or unworthy, right? How is that even true, right? It's not that we're flawed or unworthy. Perfectionism holds you to impossible standards, making it hard to accept anything less than flawless, right? Even though there's nothing flawless. Even diamonds aren't flawless. These barriers can block us from extending compassion to ourselves, even when it's desperately needed. All too often, we expose ourselves to these barriers through social media or other comparison traps, right? And it's a vicious cycle that takes its toll on our mental health, as we are all experiencing now. Now, speaking of mental health, the inability to forgive yourself can have a direct impact on your physical and mental health. Anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem are often linked to an inability to let go of past mistakes. When we constantly criticize ourselves or replay painful memories, right, in our minds, we reinforce feelings of inadequacy. And after a while, our mental resilience washes away like sand in the ocean. And we find ourselves being more harsh in our self-criticism. Anybody have that? This affects our brain and our body in ways that make us feel miserable. I don't know about you, but I sure don't feel good when I am berating myself. Now, research has shown a clear connection between self-forgiveness and improved mental health. There was an article published by the National Library of Medicine in July of 2023 that talks about a study they did that found individuals who practice self-forgiveness tend to experience lower levels of depression and anxiety, which is great. Self-forgiveness helps by breaking the cycle of negative self-talk and replacing it with a more compassionate inner dialogue, which fosters emotional well-being. There's a well-known psychologist, Dr. Worthington, who has done extensive research on forgiveness. Now, I love researching all these different doctors and psychologists that do the work on forgiveness. His work has shown that self-forgiveness has tangible mental health benefits. He states that self-forgiveness allows individuals to process negative emotions, right? This leads to less psychological distress and improved emotional resilience. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. This leads to less psychological distress and improved emotional resilience. And this is good for our hearts and our heads. Now, unfortunately, self-forgiveness doesn't happen overnight. It usually is needed to break a cycle, which has taken a while to build up. So therefore, it's a process, as you've heard me say many times. It involves several key steps that allows you to work through guilt and shame while embracing growth. So I want to take a few minutes and let's talk about a few general steps that researchers have found are important in embodying self-forgiveness. Number one is acknowledgement. This first step, it's about recognizing and acknowledging your mistakes or wrongdoings. This isn't about dwelling on the past, but it's about facing it head on without running. Okay. Sometimes we don't want to because it hurts. But I promise you, my friend, when you approach this step with curiosity and just a little bit of openness, it's worth the recognition. Now, number two is responsibility. Now, it's important to accept responsibility for your actions without falling into self-condemnation. Responsibility doesn't mean you have to beat yourself up endlessly. You simply acknowledge what happened and are willing to learn from it. Okay. When I said simply acknowledge, you're probably like, yeah, whatever. Okay. This, I know, is so hard for many of us. Accepting responsibility for things we have done to others or even ourselves can feel very hurtful. It can also carry a righteous condemnation to it. Now, one of my clients found out that her husband was having an affair. She felt betrayed and hurt and sad and angry, as you can imagine. A lot of us have experienced betrayal. But instead of getting some help for herself and for the relationship and talking it out, she was so hurt and so angry that she went out and had an affair so he would know what she feels like or what this feels like, right? When she came to me, she shared that this is something she regretted terribly. She ended up hurting her husband and the person she had the affair with. And she discovered that she felt even worse than before. She said that she wished she would have worked through it with her husband by talking and getting counseling. What she was also able to do with our work together was acknowledge her part, which was her reacting and lashing out, instead of allowing herself to feel the feelings of betrayal and then be able to respond appropriately. Now, what this did, this awareness is, this acknowledgement, helped her to do more emotional work around why she didn't share her feelings with her husband or really anyone. This is what she was realizing in our work together. She's like, it's not just I didn't share my feelings with my husband. I really wasn't acknowledging it myself, let alone anyone else. And she thought that maybe that had contributed to the breakdown in the relationship, which eventually led him to having the affair. We also had a very good conversation around it not being her fault for him having the affair. That was all him. That was his choice. You can't make anyone do anything. But what was empowering for her was realizing that she doesn't have control over other people, yet she does have control over the beliefs and the stories that she was carrying that needed some acknowledgement and tender, loving care, so that she could then decide whether she wanted to change them or not. Okay? This is taking responsibility. So number 3 is compassion. Now, self-compassion is at the heart of forgiveness. It's one of the most important parts of the process. Imagine how you would respond to a friend who had made the same mistake. I know we've heard this, but this works. We wouldn't beat them up. You would likely show them grace and understanding and kindness. So I really encourage you to offer yourself this same compassion. You deserve it, and you're worthy of it. Now, number 4 is amends. This step has a caveat to it. We make amends for our actions to the other person if we've hurt someone, if it is safe to do so. Now, this can look like apologizing to others or taking steps to make things right. Keep in mind, making amends doesn't mean you have to hold on to self-blame or guilt forever. Amends is important when you want to reconcile a relationship. But again, I stress only if it is safe to do so and not harmful to you or to them. Because sometimes it's better just to do the work, the forgiveness work separately when there's been a lot of abuse from you, right? Because we can both be the victim and the perpetrator. So number 5 is letting go. Give yourself permission to let go. Let go of the blame. Let go of the guilt. Let go of the resentment, the regret, grudge. Let go of the shame. This step can be the most difficult because sometimes we get good and friendly with our guilt and self-punishment, but it's essential for moving forward. Letting go of shame and blame allows you to accept yourself fully, flaws and all. And that's what makes you you, and you're worthy of that acceptance. Now, we talked about some general steps to help understand the process of self-forgiveness. Practicing self-forgiveness takes more than just a decision to do it, though it's that's a good first step, the decision. But it really takes endurance and ongoing effort. I'd like to share with you a few techniques that can help you to forgive yourself. Now, number 1 is mindfulness and meditation. I understand you're probably cringed on this one too, because you have heard this so many times. You already practice this. My question to you is this. Are you doing this mindfulness and meditation with the intention of letting go of shame, blame, guilt, and willingness to accept yourself? That's an important question. Are you doing the mindfulness and the meditation with the intention of letting go of shame, blame, guilt, and the willingness to accept yourself, warts and all? So mindfulness practices, like meditation, can help you become more aware of your thoughts without judgment. When you're mindful, you can observe this negative self-talk as it arises, and you can gently shift your focus away from it. Okay? Gently shift. Because I don't know about you, but I sure need help. I still do with the gently part. So meditation can help us catch ourselves and learn to have that compassion and gently shift. It helps us learn to help our mind get calm so that we can hear the judgment that we make on ourselves and other people. I don't know about you, but I do that. You might be shocked to see how hard on yourself you are really being. So keep in mind, you can't pour from the empty cup. So letting yourself hear how you're processing thoughts and then working to do so without judgment will allow you to really forgive with authenticity for yourself and others. Now, number 2 of these techniques for self-forgiveness is journaling. Now, I have clients saying they don't like to journal, that they would rather not do it at all, or they would rather type things out. So many studies are showing that writing down your feelings can be incredibly therapeutic. And even more studies show that handwriting increases connectivity between brain regions that are involved with learning and memory. It also enriches the sensory engagement, and some studies are showing that people who have more sensory engagement have a less likelihood for brain impairments. So think about that. As we get older, as more people have dementia, let's try to stay healthy, right? So journaling can give you a safe space to explore your emotions, process your guilt and shame, and it helps you to gain clarity. Because what this does is when we're journaling, right, we can reflect on our thoughts, which helps us to see our progress over time. So this is like the reward system in the brain, right, to see progress. This also gives us a way to show how far we've come. That's a great way to see how resilient we are. Now, number 3 is self-compassion exercises. Engaging in self-compassion exercises like writing love letters to yourself. That's one of the favorite things my clients learn to do. And actually, it ends up being one of the most favorite exercises that we do, along with the 13-step process. So it's like you write love letters to yourself or practice compassionate affirmations. This can help shift your internal dialogue from critical to caring. Now, Kristen Neff is a researcher on self-compassion, and she's got a lot of books out there. I really like what she shares. And she emphasizes how self-compassion exercises reduce stress and improve this emotional well-being that we are all wanting to feel deeply within ourselves. Okay, so I highly encourage you to check her out. Number 4 is the affirmations. So there's a couple different ideas about whether affirmations work or not. Studies do show that they do work for people as long as they are willing to believe them. Now, when we're carrying a story and we're carrying these beliefs and patterns that maybe we're not totally aware of, our brain's going to kick those right out, right? You know, I'm rich or I'm beautiful. Well, if I have a story running, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, then I'm not going to believe that. But studies are showing that positive affirmations can be powerful tools for rewiring the brain. So, regularly repeating affirmations like I am worthy of forgiveness or I learn and grow from my mistakes can help reinforce your sense of self-worth. And it can make self-forgiveness a more natural response. But again, the most important part of affirmations is learning to believe them. Don't let them just be words. Allow them to speak to your soul. Okay? So a trick you can use to learn to believe them if you're just starting out on this journey or if you're struggling through a hard time right now, because I use this all the time, is add the word willing or willing to be willing. So an example would be, I am willing to believe I am worthy of forgiveness. To me, that felt better in the beginning of my emotional work, and it helps now because sometimes if I'm struggling through something, it's hard. I'm with you. So sometimes it's like I don't feel worthy. So I go back to a good staple, a good foundation is I am willing to be willing to believe that I am worthy of forgiveness. All right, number 5. Now, number 5 is therapeutic approaches. Now, some studies, as we've talked about before, show that cognitive behavioral therapy, otherwise known as CBT, and acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, are therapeutic methods for helping people develop healthier thought patterns and embrace self-compassion. Yet there are also other forms of therapy that offers tools to help people navigate feelings of guilt and shame while encouraging self-forgiveness and self-acceptance. What's important is for you to try different things out to see what works for you. Maybe CBT doesn't work. CBT. And maybe ACT doesn't work. Maybe talk therapy is the way to go, or forgiveness coaching like I teach, or hypnotherapy. It's about finding what's right for you. Because when you practice self-forgiveness, the long-term health benefits will blow your mind. They're like a little pond of big ripples as you forgive yourself because that affects your overall well-being. And I want to share real quick how it does that. So how does it affect your overall well-being? Well, number 1 is improved health, mental health. Because by letting go of guilt and self-blame, you're going to notice a reduction in anxiety and depressive symptoms. A more compassionate inner dialogue emerges and leads to better emotional resilience and an overall sense of peace. Number 2, self-forgiveness strengthens emotional resilience, like we just talked about. When you can forgive yourself, you're more likely to bounce back from challenges and setbacks with greater ease. You're not letting that negative self-talk be the bully. You're not weighed down by the past. And you approach the future, well, actually, really the present and the future, with confidence and clarity. You also learn to forgive others more easily, and that's always a positive step in relationships. Number 3, forgiving yourself has a positive impact on those relationships. You become more patient and understanding and compassionate toward others because you've already extended those qualities to yourself. This means fewer conflicts and deeper connections with the people around you, and especially yourself. Number 4, the most transformative benefit of self-forgiveness is the sense of freedom it brings. Guilt and shame don't hold you down. You're not plagued with regret. You are free to be who you were created to be. That's why I got into this forgiveness work. I wanted to feel that I wanted to be who I was, not these stories, not these hats, not what other people were telling me to be. I wanted to be me. Doesn't that feel amazing? All right. Number 5 this is one of my favorites. Self-forgiveness brings deep inner peace. A quiet strength comes from accepting yourself as you are, flaws and all. When you make peace with your past, you can live more fully in the present, creating space for joy, gratitude, and contentment. Now, some say this comes with age, but I say it comes simply with accepting yourself as you are, forgiving yourself because you're human, and allowing yourself to be the best version of yourself that you can be. I think the longevity secret, really, is forgiveness. I mean, look how it changes how you feel about yourself and others. I have clients that come after we work together that say people ask them all the time, it's like, did you do something different with your hair or your makeup or what's going on? And it's like, no, they have taken the heavy burden that they were carrying of the past, and it lightens how they look and they feel younger. So in closing, I want to share that self-forgiveness is one of the most powerful tools for navigating mental health challenges. Now, it's not always easy, but the hard things are usually the ones most worth it. When life is hard and you're dealing with mental challenges, the last thing you need is guilt, shame, or regret weighing you down, right? Because it does show in our body, in our posture, in our skin. It does show. When you forgive yourself, you give yourself the gift of healing, growth, and emotional freedom and emotional resiliency. The journey to self-forgiveness takes time, but every step brings you closer to a life filled with peace, resilience, and self-compassion. Now remember, you are worthy of forgiveness. You truly are. Embrace it and watch as it transforms your mental health and overall well-being. You deserve peace, and it starts with forgiving yourself. Take care. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy it, would you do me a favor and share this episode and then follow us on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss one episode of the Forgive Yourself podcast, where every Friday you will get tips, tools, and stories so that you can turn your pain into peace. Take care.